Since its inception, Formula One has always been seen as the pinnacle of world motorsport, constantly pushing the boundaries of technology and innovation in the pursuit of speed and victory. Over the years, much of the technology pioneered by the sport has found its way into our own modes of transport, with F1 developing and maintaining a culture of innovation as well as the capacity to thrill. 2017, nearly 70 years on from the first F1 championship in the 1950s, nothing has altered. With a raft of new rules, regulations and specifications, the cars of F1 today are at the frontier of technological wonder. For many years, F1 games have been the staple diet of the racing genre, with new renditions being released every other year since driving games were first developed. Over the past decade, Codemasters, having obtained the official license from the FIA in 2008, have developed F1 games which have followed in the path of the real-world attraction by bringing gamers to the world of Formula One, and as close to the action as possible. Whilst there have been a few titles which have disappointed, on the whole, many have been a success. This year sees Codemasters and Bandai Namco develop and publish the latest of these Formula One titles with F1 2017, which arguably is the best F1 game ever to be released. That's no easy feat, but a mixture of off-track options as well as on-track action. Never before has F1 on a console seemed so realistic, bringing together almost every angle of the sport. Subtle changes to the handling mechanics of its predecessor, F1 2017 is an evolution of last year's title, and with those changes comes a sense of accessibility while retaining the breakneck pace and enthralling challenge that has made the series a success. Previously, turning off assists like traction control would have resulted in a particularly difficult and unpleasant time playing with a controller or even a wheel. However, that has mostly been addressed. While having assists off drastically increases difficulty, it never feels impossible or obtuse, and these cars have to be handled with finesse and care, with throttle control and utilising down gear shifts in addition to gently applying the brakes. Being too hard or aggressive will ultimately end in failure. A slick track under rainy skies is noticeably more slippy and less predictable than a dry one, but it isn't as daunting. Getting all the controls and everything right, flying through corners and putting together a perfect lap, there is no satisfaction like it. With the force feedback overhauled, you can sense when the car is sliding round the corners on the limit, as well as feel every bump and curb. The only thing missing is the G-forces. With custom mapping to the face buttons on the wheel, using the G29 Logitech steering wheel, each button can be used from engaging pit limiters, DRS, radios, changing fuel mixes, through to brake bias. You're more in control than ever and able to change settings on the fly, much like the drivers in the real world, and it's these little things that make the game a success. While F1 2017 sees no new race circuits added to the mix, Codemasters has improved the little details to the graphics, resulting in the tracks looking as realistic as can be, and with the PS Pro, the lighting effects and track surrounds have never looked better. Monte Carlo now looks stunning. Singapore shines at night above the floodlit circuit, and the wet weather effects look even more impressive too. Air Rouge is just as spectacular at Spa as it does on TV. Even the white, green and red chicanes of Italy's iconic Monza circuit pop with a newfound clarity, ditching the muted washed out tones that seem to have plagued previous F1 efforts. This is the pinnacle of motorsport in the world, and it finally looks like it. Away from the track, the research and development section is massively expanded for this year's game, so much so that it resembles an RPG-like skill tree system. You can earn points from practice simulations and races, which can then be spent on some 115 options available. These include upgrades like new aerodynamic elements or something less tangible like reliability. But here is where reality is brought into the game, as there is a chance development on a component will go wrong. A new part could fail, although as you progress in career mode, this can be minimised by spending points early on improving the odds of successful development. F1 teams are always running to stand still, so while you're spending points in one area, other teams are already seeing success in others. Don't worry though, you now get 10 years in a career mode to level it all up, and if it's all too much, there's a recommended button for you to do it on easy. The other great element that F1 brings to life is reliability and wear and tear to all your major engine components. You only have 4 engines, 4 gearboxes that have to last a minimum of 6 races, and if you require more than the allocated number, you'll be as happy as Fernando Alonso and given grid penalties. It forces you to watch over your car and pick the right parts for each session. With the rules of the real world brought to life in the game, there is also more of a chance of components failing during mid-race if you take the punt and use worn parts instead of changing them out for new. This all adds together to bring a complete F1 simulation alive. In addition to the cars of today, a select number of classic cars are featured in the game, from Senna's McLaren in the 1980s, using the old stick shift rather than the paddles, to Schumacher's screaming Ferrari, or even Damon Hill's 96 championship winning Williams. All the classic cars are iconic, with them all driving and sounding distinctively different. And driving around Monaco, going through the cars without changing driving style, you can see the difference of technology reflect on the timing boards. Overall, F1 2017 gets a Roy review of 9 out of 10. It's almost perfect, with a mix of refined mechanics, updated graphics, and all new cars that take one step closer to the real world of F1. With the mix of old and in with the new, it blends together as the best F1 game of all time. I hope you've enjoyed this review of F1 2017. Be sure to follow BAM Nation at bamnation.com.au. I've been Roy, and this has been a Roy's review of 2017.